What is going on, everyone? Welcome into the Week 14 NFL Power Rankings show. Man, has this season flown by. We are getting into the home stretch here, getting a better feel for where these teams are at as we push towards the playoffs. Before we do get started, if you could do me a huge favor, please do hit that like button down below. Make sure you're subscribed while you're down there for more great NFL action. We've got AFC studs and duds coming here on Friday. And then I also want to let you guys know that the Size Matters Not apparel line is open for business. If you go to that FranchiseStore.com, you can shop for this beauty right here. We got t-shirts, coffee mugs of the likes. You can also get TFG apparel there. You support my channel, you rep the brand, all of it. Thank you for checking it out. And let's go ahead and get into the action here. So, with the 32nd spot, no surprise here, the Houston Texans in a tier of their own. The Bryce Young is ours tier. I don't really get what they're doing with Kyle Allen. You might as well play Davis Mills and see if you get some year two growth as the season goes on. Maybe turn him into a real quality backup. I don't know. But obviously Kyle Allen ain't it. Now we have a tier gap up into the pit of despair. And that's going to start with the Chicago Bears. You know, despair maybe is harsh because, again, the season is going exactly how you could have hoped. Getting a high draft pick while Justin Fields plays well. He was good again this week against the Packers, and that was about it, right? Now, he does throw the interception at the end. He's got growth to show still as a passer, but still walking away from this season feeling better about the Bears' future, I would say. Then the Denver Broncos at 30, definitely not how this team envisioned their season to go. The pit of despair in full force for the Denver Broncos. They can't even beat Tyler Huntley and the Ravens, who put up 10 points this week. And this offense continues to be, honestly, the worst in the NFL, maybe outside of Houston. Then we have the LA Rams, so no change at the bottom quite yet. Yeah, I mean, they are a top-heavy roster that has now lost their top and are trying to do what they can. They're competitive against the Seahawks. I think we still feel they're a well-coached team, but they just only have so much to work with right now, and they can't buy a win. Then the Indianapolis Colts at number 28 just stomped in the second half by the Dallas Cowboys. You know, I think over the last 2 or 3 weeks, these Colts have shown that they're a little bit more competitive than the last few teams. But obviously that was not pretty, seeing their defense getting ran all over in the second half and offensively not able to truly get any sort of consistency. And then the Carolina Panthers at number 27 on bye this week. Excited to see what the second installment of the Sam Darnold era here in Carolina looks like. They've had their ups and downs over the last few weeks, staying put. So no movement in the bottom 6 teams there. But we are going to have some movement down to the 26th spot as we open up our third tier. And this is really just the we don't suck tier. Pretty straightforward. They're not good teams, but they're scrappy and competitive usually on a week-to-week basis. And that pretty much describes the Atlanta Falcons all season long. It really feels like they've played this entire season in neutral. Every week is more of the same, where Arthur Smith's scheme is doing a little bit of stuff. Mariota's running around. This defense just hasn't seemed to build too much momentum heading into next year. They've found some young players that seem to be pieces. But at this point, how can you not look at the other side of the ball as they lose to the Steelers this week, see Kenny Pickett playing pretty well, knowing that Desmond Ridder and Kenny Pickett were relatively similar level prospects? Don't you want to see 5 weeks of Desmond Ridder and just see what he can do? I just don't understand this team at this point. Mariota is not helping them win games right now. He really isn't. Missed a ton of throws in this game. Has the game-ending interception at the end. I just don't get it. They're going to drop down 2. And then the New Orleans Saints are staying put. Man, is this team weird. You watch this team the last 2 weeks, and you don't walk away saying that's a bad football team. They went into San Francisco and really played them stride for stride. Just mental mistakes, unable to finish drives, and some, unfortunate breaks hurt them and their ability to win that game. Then here against the Bucs on Monday Night Football, they see their season likely end after just one of the biggest fourth quarter collapses that we've seen this season. They have a 16-3 lead with, or 16-3 lead with 5 minutes to go. You have Mark Ingram running out of bounds, not picking up a first down. You have drops, the defense falling apart. I mean, just an inexplicable collapse. That win probability chart, to see that change, I mean, Tom Brady can do that to you. You got to finish these games, man. That was just embarrassing for the Saints, so they're going to stay put. Honestly, a good team that can't finish games and finish drives is the way I see the Saints. Then the Arizona Cardinals are going to drop down too. They're on bye this week, just getting passed up by a couple of other teams that I think are outplayed what we've seen from the Cardinals as of late. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars following up that Ravens win with an incredible stinker against the Lions. That Jags defense was toothless in that game, really just giving up everything Detroit wanted against them. You have 5 drops in that game. Zay Jones, after a great week against the Ravens, completely shit the bed. So, the Jags kind of week to week right now, some upside, some downside, as we saw. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 22. Man, this is just a different football team in the last 3 weeks since TJ Watt got back. Of course, you've seen the defense play better, but offensively, I think they've honestly impressed for what it's worth. They don't have a great O-line. They don't have a great play caller in this explosive scheme, but they do have players. And Kenny Pickett's doing a great job of getting these guys involved, whether it's Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth. Najee's been more of an impact the last few weeks. Of course, George Pickens, not so much this week, but in recent weeks has shown his flashes. So the Steelers are a solid football team. They're not an easy team to beat right now. Mike Tomlin trying to inch his way back to a 500 football season. And if he can get this team above 500, I think playoffs are probably out of play for them. But Mike Tomlin, again, has not had a losing season in like 14 years or something crazy. If he can pull a 9-8 season out of this, I mean, that's just incredible. But now we have a tier gap up, and we are going to reopen Schrödinger's box of cats. For those that missed last week's episode, this is my favorite tier name that we've ever had on this channel. I won't re-explain the whole thing, but basically the theory goes that there's a cat in a box, that a device may or may not kill the cat, and until you open that box, the cat is half alive and half dead, given that the device has a 50% chance of killing them. And it perfectly describes these teams. Every team in this tier is basically half alive, half dead. They're either teams out of the playoff picture playing pretty well right now, or teams in the playoff picture that are kind of half dead for one reason or another. So that's going to start with the Las Vegas Raiders, who have been in so many close games this year. They're starting to win them now. And when you really look at their full picture, they've been a pretty consistent offense for the most part, other than I think it was that Saints game that got shut out. But Derek Carr and Devontae Adams, that is how they're, building this passing game. The defense has Max Crosby, and that's about it. They are not a bad football team. They're kind of regressing back to the mean. Still a lot to figure out, but I think you're at least feeling better about Josh McDaniels heading into next season. They have really not been, in my mind, some horribly designed offense like I think a lot of people seem to think. Is he the best play caller? No, but there's not a lot of great play callers in the NFL. I think McDaniels is doing a pretty good job there. But before we go any further here, I want to tell you guys about my friends at Underdog Fantasy. If you've been on social media, I'm sure you have seen the screenshots by now of their Pick'em contests. I have loved playing Underdog in the last month. It has gotten me back into daily fantasy. It increases my intrigue into each individual game. If there's a lousy Thursday night game or a Monday night game, you can make one of these lineups and you are dug in until the fourth quarter, because the games are fun. You're picking anywhere from 2 to 5 player props, talking about over-unders on receiving yards, fantasy points, receptions, field goals, you name it. And the payouts are huge. You can get up to 20 to 1. If you hit all 5 of your picks, you can buy insurance so that you're saved on one of your picks. I have loved Underdog Fantasy, and I know you guys will too. And now, if you use promo code TFG at signup, you will support my channel, but you will also get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. That is promo code TFG at Underdog Fantasy, and good luck on your plays. Then we got the New York Giants at number 20. They pick up a tie this week. That's pretty par for the course for the Giants. This team has not beaten a non-Texans football team since the month of October. So they're hanging around. This is what they want to do, right? They want to muddy games up and hope they can seal games late. Unable to get the job done for a win this week. But hey, they didn't lose. Then we got the Green Bay Packers staying put at number 19. They go into Chicago. They pick up a win. It is what it is. Not overly impressive, but defense made a couple plays. Christian Watson continues to dominate. They now have a bye week to get maybe 2 weeks of let Aaron Rodgers heal up, and we'll see where it goes from there. They are not entirely out of it. They need some help from the other teams ahead of them here. And then they also need to win out with some tough games against the Dolphins and the Vikings. So it's not completely done, but it's pretty done. But they're playing well overall. The last 3-4 weeks, they've been a much better football team than, say, October. Then the Cleveland Browns at number 18, dropping down a spot after getting passed up by the Detroit Lions, as we'll see shortly. But Watson makes his debut. Definitely a rusty performance. Not going to act like I'm disappointed that he didn't come out and light up his old team. But we're going to have to continue evaluating what this offense can be as they continue to play real football teams, unlike the Texans. Then the Baltimore Ravens at 17. Huge drop this week. Going to be a surprise that they come in this low, but I'm ranking these teams how I would pick them in a neutral site heading into the next week. And with Huntley out there, with Lamar missing several weeks here, that's a real injury there. They're down to a backup quarterback. We see this all the time. And it's not just that. Their offense has really not been explosive with or without Lamar Jackson, but, Lamar is their offense and has been their offense. Without him, I don't know how many 10-9 football games this team's going to be able to win. I do like this defense quite a bit, but they're going to have to play near perfect from an execution standpoint offensively to win games with Huntley, who's not a bad backup. That's why they still rank 17th. But yeah, that margin for error just has reduced a lot. And this is a team that has made plenty of errors this year. And then the Washington Commanders at number 16, staying put. They tie against the Giants. Not a whole lot else to add on this team. They are a perfectly average football team that in a year where a lot of teams that were supposed to be good are bad, they're hanging right around in the playoff mix, but, not a team anyone's taking all that seriously. Now, the Detroit Lions, people better start taking this team seriously, and maybe I should have ranked them a little bit higher last week, but this is it's turning into a complete football team. Their defense has their holes and their issues, but over the last 2 months, really, the Lions defense has showed up, and they're pulling young players out of, I don't want to say nowhere, but up the depth chart and into the starting lineup and finding real pieces, not just to help them this year, but for the future. And lately, it's been a 6th rounder, James Houston, who's crushing it as a pass rusher in a rotational role. Malcolm Rodriguez, another good game this week. So the defense has been a very pleasant surprise, and the offense has been mostly consistent all year. The offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, Detroit is going to have to do a convincing job to get him to stay because he's been a top 5-ish play caller this year. His rhythm, knowing exactly when to push the right buttons, it's been really impressive. Jared Goff is running the show as well. I think that's an interesting narrative. Detroit has kind of played themselves likely out of the Bryce Young sweepstakes. So is this a team that could maybe roll the dice on a guy like Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, who has since declared, and sit him behind Jared Goff for a year to get him up to speed at the NFL level? It is an interesting proposition. They also got Jamison Williams out there for a couple looks this week. So the Detroit Lions are not just a tough team to play right now, they are very much alive in this playoff picture, honestly. If you look at Washington and New York, I think Detroit is a better football team than them right now. They're going to need some help from Washington to lose, along with New York. But you guys, the Detroit Lions opened as favorites against the Minnesota Vikings this week at home. Not saying that's a lock to win, but it shows you what the experts in the desert think of this team. So the Lions certainly building a lot here, and it's everything you could have hoped for the Detroit Lions. But now we have a tier gap up, And these are, again, same as last week, our unserious contenders. Teams in the playoff picture, might get in, might fall short, but at the end of the day, teams that I just don't see necessarily with the upside to win a Super Bowl. Maybe teams that if they could get into the playoffs or maybe win a playoff game, that could be considered a success. And that's going to start with the LA Chargers, who lose against the Raiders this week. And this is just such a bland football team, and it's everything from a lack of explosiveness to a bland scheme. Again, they have Justin Herbert running the Saints' Drew Brees offense, and the average depth of target is low. They just don't scare you in any way on either side of the football. Bosa doesn't seem too close to getting back healthy. That was a point of potential optimism here. They're just a very average football team. They're going to play in a lot of close games. They're going to win some. As we saw this week, they're going to lose some. So dropping down 3 for the LA Chargers, who this is probably the least excited I've been about the LA Chargers upside in a long time. And it's crazy to say that given how we feel about Justin Herbert. It's really not anything to do with him, honestly. Then at number 13, the New England Patriots going to drop down a spot after getting smashed by the Buffalo Bills. It's not an embarrassing loss. The Bills will do that to you. But the offensive consistency from the Patriots, it's just so concerning. It's a lack of explosiveness, right? And I do think Mac Jones has played a little bit better lately, but they just don't have a whole lot of go-to ways to pick up chunk yardage and kind of base their offense around. It's just a lot of high difficulty stuff that they need to execute on a week-to-week basis, and that's a lot to ask. So -1 for the Patriots. I don't hate them. I don't love them. Then the New York Jets are going to climb up a spot. Thought they put up a really good fight against the Vikings, and I do think this defense you would expect to play better than they did last week against the Vikings. That was one of their worst on the season from a defensive point of view. We feel very good about what they have on that side of the ball. Honestly, the offense played pretty well, and Mike White made some big throws in that game. Garrett Wilson continues to dominate. That touchdown was just the perfect encapsulation, encapturement, whatever the word is. I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comments which word I'm looking for there on my big dumb brain. But the touchdown from Garrett Wilson showing the verticality, the ability to make guys miss, everything I said about comparing him to Stephon Diggs, that was very reminiscent for Vikings fans of the old Stephon Diggs with his kind of shifty ball carrying ability. So yeah, the Jets I think are fine. I don't know how much I trust that offense with Mike White, but they're playing pretty well, and I think that defense plays better moving forward. Then we got the Seattle Seahawks climbing up 4 spots because they win again. They beat the Rams. It wasn't necessarily a convincing win, but another 27 offensive point performance. Geno Smith just continues to make plays for this offense that has legit been one of the most consistent, best offenses in the entire NFL. Defensively, however, you give up 24 points, I think it was, to Walford, and the last few weeks, this defense has certainly shown that they're one of the worst in the league. So it's tough to count on Geno Smith to win shootouts every week. But as far as what Geno's been this year, it's been a relatively consistent formula for them. And now with Jimmy G going down for the Niners, this NFC West is getting very interesting. Then Tampa Bay at number 10. I don't think my thoughts on this team has changed too much. They did pick up another win. Good to see another week of defensive consistency. It has really just been a very stable, reliable defense. And the Bucs right now, I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but they're a good, not great football team. They are going to keep coming offensively. Brady's just going to keep firing. It doesn't matter if he has a missed throw or an interception or a bad read or takes a sack on the drive before. He just has a short memory. He's going to come out. He's going to keep firing, giving guys like Julio Jones, Mike Evans, who made some special catches in this game. He's going to give them a chance, and defensively, they're going to keep them alive. It is a good formula. Is it a great formula? Can they win 4 straight playoff games and win a Super Bowl like this where they just don't have an element of offensive consistency? I would say probably not, but it is Tom Brady. So who knows? I have them in the unserious contenders tier. And then the Tennessee Titans at number 9. They got smashed by the Eagles this week. That was their worst performance on the season. And, obviously, my thoughts on them aren't changing too much here. It's just unfortunate to see when I think about the Titans defense, it is that secondary that would potentially concern me. And to see them giving up big plays to A.J. Brown and not really be able to compete offensively with the Eagles was certainly concerning. They're going to have better defensive weeks ahead, but the run game has been really uninspiring the last couple weeks as well. So maybe this is a week too late on the Titans. Maybe the Bucs and the Seahawks are better, but the Titans have also had some impressive wins the last couple weeks. It's getting kind of muddy here in that 9, 10, 11 range. But I am going to have a tier gap here to the Niners at number 8. And this tier is our Super Bowl contenders tiers. And, I struggled with the Niners here because I really felt like maybe they should be in a tier below, and maybe they will prove out that they do belong there. But I love this defense so damn much. I think this is the most intimidating, high upside defense in the NFL with this pass rush. Getting Arik Armstead back this week, that I don't think enough people realize how good he is and how much he means for this scheme. Miami could not handle those stunts, and the Niners run cross stunts better than anybody. And Arik Armstead might be the best 3-technique stuntman in the league because he's got get off, he's 6'7", he's strong, he's one of the best bull rushers in the NFL. And when he's able to occupy gaps and allow these quick guys like Samson Ebukam, Nick Bosa, and even a young player like the USC kid, Drake Jackson, this pass rush is so much to handle. They're pretty good on the back end. These linebackers are awesome. That's going to keep them in any single football game. And yes, Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, but Brock Purdy looked fine. Like, I think he can run this offense. I was a big believer in Brock Purdy coming out. A lot of people had completely written him off, and I said, no, there's a lot of stuff to like in his game. He moves well in the pocket. He's got a good release. He's accurate in the short game. He's a good decision maker. It's a guy that played like 50 games in college. So for him to step in at the end of his rookie season for an offense that has had success with even like a Jimmy Garoppolo, but, guys going back to like C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins, the Niners can definitely stay alive with this version of this offense. McCaffrey's awesome, Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, they have a million playmakers. They run the ball well. I'm not ready to say that Jimmy Garoppolo going down ends this team's season, but it very well could. It was a small sample size from Brock Purdy, but I thought he did his job and made a few nice throws in that game. So don't sleep on the Niners with Brock Purdy until he comes out and plays poorly, honestly. But the Miami Dolphins are going to be ranking ahead of them here because they didn't lose their starting quarterback to injury this week. But obviously the Niners outplayed them, and this was not a great week for the Dolphins. Tua played his worst game in a while, just missed a ton of throws in this game. He really did. And this offense has been night and day without Teron Armstead. So they got to get him back. I don't know if they're optimistic that they will. I saw that they just picked up Nate Solder. I don't think that's going to save their season. So that's a huge concern. This offense it really has to be better than they were. There's no way around it. Waddle, I think, also got banged up. That'd be huge. Is this team running out of steam here towards the end of the season? It's certainly possible. But obviously the last few months, few weeks since Tua came back from the concussion have been very positive for the Dolphins. So don't want to completely write them off after a bad day against the best defense in the NFL, possibly. Then the Minnesota Vikings at number 6 are going to wrap up this tier. And honestly, the Vikings might belong in their own sort of sub-tier here because I do think they are notably better than the Dolphins and the Niners right now. They just keep winning these one-score games, man. What are they, 9-1 this year in one-score games? It's pretty freaking crazy. They hold off the Jets at the end of this game. Kirk Cousins has just had his ups and downs, but he continues to make plays. Defensively, they've showed up when it's really mattered. History would tell you this will regress back to the mean. Like I said, they're 1-point underdog against Detroit this week. So like all the analytics say that this isn't sustainable for them to be at a Super Bowl level. But hey, if this team gets home games in the playoffs with what is to me one of the best home field advantages in the league, they have all these playmakers that do show up in these big opportunities. Jefferson, these defensive players, Daniil and Za'Darius, should say that in opposite order. Patrick Peterson's been clutch this year. They have found a formula to keep games close, and hope that they land on the right side of the coin. And who am I to say after the Bengals went on a Cinderella run last year and almost won the Super Bowl that these Vikings can't do that? I think they're kind of similar teams in a lot of ways. But I am going to have a tier gap up into now the biggest top tier we've had this season. This is the adults table. And ordering these teams was incredibly difficult for me this week because I think we now have the biggest and tightest gap at the top here. And I really struggled with this decision. But like I said, I'm ranking these teams. Who am I picking this week? And honestly, I'm going to put the Chiefs 5th in this group. Now, like I said, this gap is teeny, tiny. We're talking about half a point on a neutral field, probably, in my mind, between all these teams. So I had to order it somehow. But I'm growing more concerned about this Chiefs defense, their cornerback depth, the high-end pass rush ability. If it's not Chris Jones, do I really think Frank Clark and George Karlaftis are scaring anybody up there? No. So you're putting a ton of pressure on Patrick Mahomes. And sometimes that'll work, sometimes it won't. This week, it didn't. So the Chiefs are going to come in 5th. I'm not worried about them. I still think they very well could be winning the Super Bowl this year. This is any team in this group, really. But I'm going to put the Dallas Cowboys 4th. And how can you not be impressed? Cowboys fans are going to be mad that they're not climbing up. Everyone here impressed this week, other than the Chiefs. But the Cowboys have climbed into the top tier. So that is, in my mind, a jump up for them. Offensively, they have really opened up. What have they scored? Like 90 points in the last 2 weeks? Was the Vikings game last week? No, Vikings game was before Thanksgiving, but they scored 28 on Thanksgiving. So they've put up, I think, over 100 points in the last 3 weeks. They're just so complete offensively, and defensively, we know what they can do up front. So the Cowboys are incredibly loaded right now, very much a Super Bowl favorite type of team at this point. Then the Buffalo Bills are going to come in at number 3. They're going to drop down 1, again, really just because other teams have impressed me more. They had a good game this week on Thursday night against the New England Patriots, a team that they've had a ton of success against. But Josh Allen has been making mental mistakes lately. I am worried about some of these defensive injuries. They're now down really 2 superstars without Micah Hyde and Von Miller. I don't know if and when he's going to get back out there. So, Gregory Rousseau stepped in and played well this week. Not a bad week for the Bills. It was just a better week for other teams, namely the Philadelphia Eagles at number 2. Dominant performance against the Titans. This is the most complete team in football. They can beat you in so many ways offensively. Defensively, a much better performance this week against Tennessee. I do have my questions about the upside of the defense, but overall, the Eagles are awesome and continue to really just impress and climb here. But I am going to really surprise you guys here, I think, with my number 1 team, the Cincinnati Bengals, who I think I'm a week late on rising them. Because when you look at what they've done over the last 5 weeks of football, and really since week 5, when they made their change to more of a spread shotgun offense, this has completely changed the discussion on the Bengals. When you look at what we said about them coming into the year, my biggest concern was Zach Taylor and an offensive scheme that I didn't think fit their players the best and limited the upside of their team. And since week 5, he has pulled a complete U-turn. We have talked about it a lot on this channel, but the biggest thing here, not only does this fit the team and fit these players and make more sense, but Joe Burrow inside this offense is legitimately an elite quarterback. And he is no worse than the 3rd quarterback in the NFL right now. I think he has announced himself as a legitimate MVP candidate. And over the last 5 weeks of football, he has been a better quarterback than the guy in Buffalo. So if the quarterback here is playing better than the guy in Buffalo, why should they not rank ahead of them after they just beat the Chiefs? I know the Bills did that earlier in the year, but the Bengals defense is playing great right now too. One of my other big concerns here after the Awuzie injury was this cornerback room. And Eli Apple has really stepped up. The rookie corner, Cam Taylor-Britt, has played well. They've been excellent in their front 4. I think they're a very complete defense. And offensively, I just don't know how you stop these guys right now. Their scheme looks great. Joe Burrow has 1 turnover-worthy play since week 3. Let that sit in for a second. So he's taking care of the football. He's been on time. He's finding tight windows. He's been accurate. He's been incredible. He's maybe outplayed Patrick Mahomes in that time. You bring Jamar Chase back into the mix here seamlessly, plays great. They didn't even have Joe Mixon this week. Samaje Perine been awesome. So to me, the Bengals are on a roll. They are getting hot and healthy at the right time. And I think they would be my pick against anybody in the NFL right now, ever so slightly. So I really struggled with this top 5. I really just lined them up and said, okay, if they were playing this Sunday on a neutral field, who am I picking? And I would take the Bengals to slightly edge out Jalen Hurts in crunch time. And I think they're a more balanced, well-complete team than the other guys ever so slightly. And they just beat the Chiefs. So tough top 5 to order. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of disagreement there. Let me know in the comments down below what those disagreements are. I'm curious, what are your top 5 as we move forward? But thank you so much for watching. Again, please do hit that like button before we get out of here. I really appreciate it. You can check out the merch at thatfranchisestore.com. And we'll see you later. Peace out.